Good afternoon, welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Josh Schimmels, publisher and CEO of the Los Angeles Business Journal. It's a pleasure to host today's Black Business Matters panel discussions. This is our fourth session of the series in which we talk about Black business and leadership in Los Angeles. Our previous conversations focused on ways to invest and engage with Black businesses, the importance of mentorship, women's leadership, the unique challenges faced by Black female executives, and access to capital, building business, and building wealth. For today, I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation, this time around urban renaissance. We're going to hear from our experts on development, finance, community building, education, and many more topics. Let me tell you how the next hour is going to break down. We are going to have two 30-minute panels. We're going to begin with development and redevelopment, where we're going to get a behind-the-scenes look at monumental projects in South Los Angeles, led by BIPOC developers who are taking a conscientious, community-first approach to real estate and economic development. And then our second panel is going to be on building community, what we're seeing regarding the role and the impact organizations play in shaping the social and economic landscape of historically Black neighborhoods within the Los Angeles community. I want to thank all of those of you who submitted questions during the registration process, as it's really helped us to shape the conversations. We've been able to incorporate many of those into the Q&A. I also want to let you know that during our panels, you're going to see audience poll questions pop up on your screen. We encourage you to respond, share your experiences, and then we'll publish those results online next week on our website. Before we get started, I really want to thank all of our amazing sponsors for their continued commitment to the series, their support of our community of business. So many, many thanks to CBRE, the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber of Commerce, JP Morgan Chase & Company, and One Legacy. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. Okay, we've got a lot of great content and I want to get started as soon as possible. So I'm going to introduce our panels for first panel today. Sherry Brewer, Senior Vice President and Chief Retail Officer with One United Bank. Jamie Brooks, Senior Vice President, CBRE. Curtis Fralin, Founder, Styx Holdings. Michael Tidwell, Valuation and Advisory with Cushman and Wakefield, and Executive Board with AREP LA. And last but not least, Kimberly Brown, Managing Director, Cushman and Wakefield, and President of AREP LA. Kimberly, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Josh, and hello to everyone. Just on behalf of AREP LA, which by the way stands for the African American Real Estate Professionals, the Los Angeles chapter, I'd like to thank the LA Business Journal for this opportunity to talk to you this afternoon. We've got a lot to say. We've got, as Josh mentioned, we've got some subject matter experts around development. But first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about our organization. And so we're the African American Real Estate Professionals. We're the Los Angeles chapter. I am the president of the organization. We've got a number of folks here on the line that are also either board members, advisory board members, or in several leadership roles within the organization. We are specifically centered around commercial real estate, all asset classes and sectors, office, industrial, commercial, retail, affordable housing, multifamily, build to rental. If you have any touch points within the commercial real estate industry in Southern California, you've probably come out to one of our events in the past where you've networked and engaged in business to business exchange or found a job. That's what we do. But what we also say is that we are the intersection of the commercial real estate industry and the Black community. And so hence the reason why we are here to talk to you today. Personally, I'm managing director with Cushman and Wakefield. I lead business development efforts with institutional investors, private equity, and high net worth individuals, global occupiers, primarily around investment sales, brokerage, and asset services. So sort of in a unique position in between that intersection of it all. What I will say is that when I'm asked to speak, Oftentimes my audience is institutional investors, so this is delightful just to be able to talk to the business community in general. But a big part of my message is around the impact of systemic policies and the communities of color. And so oftentimes I'm talking about redlining and the effects of redlining to this day around communities of color and the impact. I mean, we're talking years of disinvestment. We're talking climate injustice. We're talking environmental injustice. We're talking urban heat island effect. We're talking food deserts. All of those things have plagued the community. And again, just all the disinvestment. Well, fast forward, now there's a surge in investment and reinvestment. And so we're proud to say that we've got developers, we've got BIPOC developers within our organization that are making an impact and developing large and significant projects within our community. And as a matter of fact, we're showcasing all of our developer sponsors this coming weekend on a development tour showcase where we will be hosting a bus tour throughout South LA, targeting areas such as the Crenshaw District, the Vermont Corridor, the Watts community. So we're super excited about what we're doing, the impact that we're making, and the communities that we're serving. So with that said, I'd like to pass the mic to my colleague at Cushman and Wakefield, also my colleague on the executive board of ARAP LA, a good friend and my partner in this work, Michael Tidwell. Mike, take it away.
Thank you very much, Kim. Good day, everyone. I am a director in the Valuation Advisory Service line at Cushman & Wakefield. I specialize in market rate, affordable, LIHTC multifamily housing. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, in particularly Inglewood, California. So as a professional and someone that's local to the market, I add a very interesting perspective of a historic view to where we currently are now. And to be able to watch it all has been very interesting for me. I'm extremely excited to host today's panel discussion, as this panel was well represented by multiple parties that serve various functions in the development process. I'd like to quickly introduce today's panelists again, but this particular time, allow them a few moments to enlighten you about their background. First, we have Jamie Brooks from CBRE. Jamie, can you chime in and just kind of let them know your background?
Got that mute button. All right.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the intro. I run a 4-person team in our South Bay El Segundo office, and I just want to say I appreciate the Business Journal for affording us this opportunity and their ongoing commitment to the Black Business Matters series. And a vital element of our business, Michael, for a long time now has been our team's dedication to the South LA market. We cover all of South LA, GLA County, but honestly, for the past 2 decades, we really have been on the front line, so to speak. We like to say we were ESG before Wall Street started giving it a score. So happy to be here. Thanks for the acknowledgement.
Greatly appreciate it. Next up, the wonderful Sherry Brewer.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here today. I am the banker in the group, and glad to be here and talk about what we're seeing from the banking side with interest rates and development and what investors are interested in our community. One United Bank is the largest Black-owned, not Black-managed, Black-owned bank in the entire United States. We're proud to be a part of this panel, and we are invested in our communities throughout the United States. And I think this is a timely topic. There's a lot of money flowing into Los Angeles for development and redevelopment. And I encourage everyone that is participating today to consider the bus tour that'll give you a little bit of highlight into what's really happening in Los Angeles in the area of development. Again, One United Bank, we specialize in multifamily financing as a financial institution. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Last up is, but not least, Mr. Curtis Fralin.
Happy to be here. Curtis Fralin, my company is Sticks Holdings. We've been developing in South Los Angeles for 30 years. Our specialty has been Watts, Compton, Inglewood, Crenshaw. We're happy to see the increased interest in the community. There's a lot happening in South Los Angeles, and I'm very happy to be on this panel.
Great. Thank you, Curtis. As a local Angelino, I think our perspective of what we view Los Angeles is a little bit different from people that have moved here from other areas. My mother and father are born and raised out here in Los Angeles, interesting enough. And Angelinos have typically viewed our submarkets through a regional and local lens. However, an expanded investor pool has flooded capital into Los Angeles beyond your typical West Side markets. Hence, Los Angeles has garnered the interest of global investors, which has affected all asset classes of real estate. So with that said, my thoughts go first to you, Jamie. Can you speak on historical retail investment or investors, and also the operators that you would see previously to what you are seeing now in the South Los Angeles market?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. But I think, as a retail guy, it's important to acknowledge that for the first time in a few years, retail is cool again. and that's not a light statement if you consider 2 years ago how disruptive the pandemic was, and candidly, even before that. So, historically, South LA was a very unique place. People like Curtis Fralin were some of the pioneers in the industry, both on the brokerage and development side. But as of right now, you got to imagine South LA is probably nationally one of the premier destinations of the entire country. And part of that's because of the billions of dollars of public and private infrastructure being poured into mass transit, sports and entertainment facilities, location, and then honestly, out of default, just the state housing crisis that has triggered all of the multifamily need and affordable housing. So it's interesting how far we've come. At one time, it was just on a needs-based initiative where we needed more food opportunities, more clothing opportunities, but it was more needs-based. Today, it's completely evolved. So it's exciting to be a part of.
Awesome. So Sherry, I see you nodding your head over there. And
Yes.
so it makes me think, historically, what are you seeing from a lending perspective? And as far as underwriting practices and what, capital is being available for versus to what may not have been considered a viable project previously.
Right. And I'm speaking from the multifamily financing perspective. First of all, as far as underwriting guidelines, it's always the cash flow on the property, but we also want strong entities, owners, to guarantee those loans and things to acquire multifamily properties. The reason why I was nodding my head is because what Jamie said about, number one, affordable housing. Typically, I'm talking about multifamily, and the investor interest in what we call affordable housing is very high. Current investors or owners of multifamily property, I would say for the first 4 months of this year, have been pulling equity out of their properties to store up for future investments. The highest area of interest, and Jamie talked about, it's not just people in Southern California, they're crossing state lines, it's international. People are interested in investing in affordable properties, but there's also this development piece of increasing affordable properties. There is a very, very low vacancy rate. If we just talk about Los Angeles County, if we talk about California in general, when we talk about vacancy rates in multifamily housing, they're extremely low. There is high demand and there is great opportunity, and investors are waiting at the sidelines to get involved either in development and or acquiring these properties. People are crossing state lines and going into other areas where they can acquire these properties. So when we talk about financing, again, I said the first 4 months of the year, interest rates, were much lower, almost 2 percentage points lower than where they are today. Today, we're in a 5% borrowing interest rate where we were at 3.25, 3.5 earlier this year. So things have sort of slowed down, but it's still a great opportunity. And I like what Jamie said because it was right on target with what we're seeing.
Understood. So now I'm gonna swing it over to Curtis, and I want to kind of frame it like this because a couple things were said. One is that development in South Los Angeles and these markets that you're in is hot. Individuals are crossing state lines, well as international borders to get into our market, as Sherry pointed out. And so what is this environment and how have you handled this, Curtis, as a developer, to have been in the market previously, well before a lot of this interest has started? If you can talk about those times to what you're experiencing now to the extent of what Jamie and Sherry pointed out.
Well, it's always been a vibrant market. I got in the business in 1989, and you had this huge area, very dense, a lot of pride of ownership, and sophisticated investors knew about it. And those investors have done very well because land prices have just increased astronomically. I was buying land on Crenshaw at $40 a foot. Now land on Crenshaw is $250 a foot. I've always said that density equals median incomes, and we're seeing that now. When you have 150,000 people in a 1 mile radius, those are dollars spent. And so I'm, with the train coming into the area, with gentrification, you're seeing an interest that we've never seen before, a lot of development, and I think it's just going to continue.
Thank you for that. And some of the things that you said were about how active the market has always been and the sophisticated investors that have been involved in the market. I want to come back to you, Jamie, and if you can talk about community engagement, because there is a certain level of new capital in the market. And can you talk about community engagement, maybe best practices, and not so much for what your best practice, but what you've seen out in the market from clients of yours, or just broadly of what you've seen that has been successful?
Yeah, no, it's a loaded question, right? Because
yeah, straight up.
You take that in a lot of directions, and I can piggyback off of a few things Curtis said. I think point one, I probably learned this from Curtis 20 years ago, is if you're going to develop a project, you need to be proactive with the community, full transparency, because the guys who are successful, they have credibility with the community. Don't sign a lease, then go tell the councilman or the community what you plan on building. Sit down and find out what that community needs if you're not from that community. And honestly, over time, you will be surprised by the reaction some retailers will have because they do recognize this is a major growth opportunity. On the gentrification piece, there's nothing romantic about living in a neighborhood and not having access to basic needs and services. So the challenge isn't gentrification, it's really resegregation, which is a term I heard a long time ago. To combat that, you need equity participation. So, affordable housing is somewhat of the medicine. The cure would be home ownership, business ownership, commercial investment, access to capital. So for me right now, it's a unique time because a lot of our historical constituents, they've been diluted, but they are still in the market. And so as these new companies who are pledging billions of dollars to ESG principles claim they want to help exhibit diversity, equity, inclusion practices, Crenshaw, South LA, Inglewood, it represents an opportunity to stand by what you're saying and be more inclusive. So it's a unique time, but I think we got to just get out in front of it and make sure that we're keeping all of these corporations accountable.
Understood. I'm gonna come to you, Sherry, because being that you're on the banking side, can you speak to home ownership lending practices, the bank's involvement in the community. I know you guys have been on Crenshaw for a very, very long time and just, integrated into the community. So I'm pretty sure you have an interesting perspective to provide.
Mhm. I will say this, that when we talk about home ownership, we want to promote home ownership as a way to generational wealth. We do strongly believe that home ownership is the key. Right now, rents are at an all-time high, and we're talking about a recession. And we are standing behind all of the community organizations that are talking about come learn how to buy your own home. It is so important, especially now, for individuals to understand, to get up and go to work every day, how important it is to control your future through real estate. And when I say control your future, it's not just about housing. It is important that we talk about housing, but it's also about wealth. No one in this country has built wealth without real estate, maybe except Amazon, maybe. And I think it's very, very important that we understand, for everyday working families, real estate is what's going to move us forward. When we talk about underwriting, it's the same. Most people, it's Fannie Mae, it's Freddie Mac, it's standard underwriting. The thing that helps individuals that don't meet that criteria is the FHA loan, which we do not offer at One United, but I am still a strong proponent of any mortgage product that allows an individual to buy a home with a low down payment. There are also state programs that help families with down payments and things like that. That's very important. But I'm also promoting individuals getting together, the village getting together, and creating investment groups and looking at opportunities, whether it's retail, whether it's residential, whether it's, and when I say residential, I mean single family, whether it's multifamily, and doing some investment in real estate. Real estate is going to bring you a return one way or another. You have to be strategic, you have to be knowledgeable to make it work. Now, when we talk about underwriting, yes, we want to see your ability to save money. We want to know you're invested in something before you ask us to help you get a home. You've got to have a down payment. We want to see that you're stable in your work industry, not necessarily in the particular job you have now, but you've been in the industry for a while. And these are single family underwriting criteria. With multifamily, again, it speaks to itself. We're looking at cash flow and we're looking at the financial strength of the owners. And most of the owners that come to us through brokers to get these multifamily loans, they have multiple properties that they own and they come very strong to us.
Got it. Thank you for that. Curtis, I'm gonna swing it back to you. And what I would like your take on is, as we expound on this conversation, what factors are contributing to the increased demand? Because you talked about $40 a square foot, the $30 to $40 square foot for land, and now you're seeing $240 a square foot for land in South Los Angeles. And can you also, once you talk about those particular factors that are moving demand, could you also add the tail end of that about what current development activity out there that you are seeing that are like key projects in the areas that you will continue to see to build upon the demand that's already there?
Well, the area is finally being noticed for what it is, a very dense, a very expansive, very wealthy community. The fears of gang banging and all those issues, the racism built in it, are finally disappearing because people are noticing that there's a strong community there. They're noticing national credit tenant interest. They're noticing trains now going through our community. Property value, they're noticing that property values are just increasing like crazy. The West Side is moving south, and that it started, it hit Culver City, and now it's coming to our community. And people are noticing that this is a viable community. People are starting to move to South Los Angeles that weren't normally there. National credit tenants are coming in. So all that helps. Also, what the city did was they changed the zoning.
Mm.
And huge impact on the community. When you go from a C2 to a tier 4, where you have a 10,000 square foot lot and you can build a 2,500 square foot shopping center 20 years ago, but now you can build 30 units on it, that really increase the value of those properties. And that's why you're seeing so much vertical development in the community. I'm a retail developer, but I've had to change my game plan because it doesn't work at 250 a foot.
Yeah.
Vertical housing does. And what's also happening is that retailers are starting to get used to having housing on top of them. So it's easier to get retailers to accept that. There are many developments happening right now. I mean, Inglewood, look what happened with Inglewood. Manchester, Vermont, you have a major development happening. Up and down Crenshaw, you see apartment building after apartment building. You got movie studios coming in at 3701 Stalker. You have the mall deal that just happened. So South Los Angeles is prime. It's going to be it's just going to be an incredible community. It is an incredible community, but it's only going to get better with what's
Awesome.
happening.
So as we wrap up, I believe we have about 2 minutes left. I would like to come around again and get some of your final thoughts on development, maybe that you can shoot out there in the atmosphere, that individuals, a nugget that they can take with them. My thing that I'm shooting out is as a valuation professional, specializing in multifamily and being born and raised here in Los Angeles, something that I had to, in my lens, I had to change is understanding that LA is an international market. South Los Angeles is not excluded from that. The same interests, it's only so much land in the West Side, Santa Monica, Hollywood, downtown. Demand begins to spill out into the other areas. So South Los Angeles, bunch of growth, a lot of things happening in the entire LA. Jamie, I'll swing it to you, and then Sherry, and then Curtis, and I think that would be our time.
Yeah, I'll be brief, but to follow up on Curtis's point about retail, if you look over the past few years, the retail development pipeline has been muted. And part of that is because of the disruption in retail, but it's also from competing factions from residential and industrial adaptive reuse. So right now, retailers are having to reimagine what their footprint looks like. And honestly, there's really no retailer we can't approach today about an opportunity in South LA. And that's probably been the biggest game changer is they're out there looking for store growth in LA proper. And from a location standpoint, you can get to LAX, you can get to downtown LA, all through a train, by the way, you can get to Santa Monica. So, I mean, I really feel like the best is yet to come as long as we're, putting together smart plans moving forward.
I think that's our time. I'm gonna hand it back over to you, Josh.
Well, thank you so much. That was incredibly insightful and enlightening. How about a virtual round of applause for our first panel? Thank you to Sherry, Jamie, Kimberly, Curtis, and Michael. Now we're going to move right into our second and final panel of the afternoon, where we're going to be discussing building community. So let's meet our panelists. First, we have Jean Hale, co-chair of GLAC, Tiffany Jefferson, founder and creator of Black-owned Food LA, Deidre Porcher, head of community and business development with JP Morgan Chase Bank, Dr. Lois Shelton, professor of management, CSUN David Nazarian College of Business and Economics, and our moderator today, Michael Cox, CEO and publisher, the official Black magazine. Michael, so good to have you. Great to see you again. Welcome.
Thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure to be here. Being born and raised in Los Angeles, the 10th district, mid-city to be exact, it's amazing to see as many Black-owned businesses, seeing the history here in the city and just being a part of the legacy itself. Just a little background behind me. My grandmother was really big in politics out there with the Nate Holden and started a steering women's committee in 1972 that is still here today. So I just know the power of Black-owned businesses from nonprofit to for-profit that can, really create an impact. So that's why I am just always super, just passionate about it. I would like to just give everyone who are on the panel time to introduce themselves and give a little bit of a background behind it. And so I would like to start off with Gene.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gene Hale. I'm president of GNC Equipment Corporation. We distribute commercial and industrial construction equipment. I'm also chairman and founder of the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber of Commerce in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Gene. Tiffany, let's go with you next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany Jefferson. My platform on social media is Black Owned Food LA. I tell these businesses their stories. I highlight them, and I have a platform of an audience that support Black-owned businesses.
Great. Thank you, Tiffany. Deidre, your turn.
Thank you. It's so great to be here with all of you. My name is Deidre Porche, and I'm the managing director and also head of and business development for JP Morgan Chase. I've been with the firm 28 years. It's hard to believe that I'm saying that, but 28 years with the same company. And I've been in Los Angeles for a little over 10 years. The last 4 years, I was responsible for running small business and business banking for the state of California. Right now, I lead a team of professionals called community managers. And it's their job to build relationships in the community, hyper-local relationships with local stakeholders, nonprofits, business leaders, in order to connect our people to banking and finance and resources right in their community. I'm so glad to be here with you guys today.
Thank you, Deidre. Dr. Shelton, your turn.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lois Shelton. I'm a professor of management and entrepreneurship at the Nazarian College at California State University, Northridge. I specialize in researching women-owned and Black-owned and BIPOC-owned businesses, along with business growth and business strategy.
Thank you for the introduction. Now let's get this discussion all the way started with the group. What are some of the true resources necessary for Black businesses to start, maintain, and grow in Los Angeles? Gene, obviously, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you, Michael. I believe that the first thing that someone needs to start a business is a business plan. And without that, you will fail. We also need to have some sort of mechanism in place where there's access to capital. Banks need to be more lenient in their lending practices. We also need what I call equity investors. Many times a bank will loan you money, but it's just for the purpose of paying off debt. And that really doesn't really do the job for you. The other item that I think you need to, when you're talking about starting a business, you have to figure out a way to collateralize the loan or whatever you're asking for. For example, many startup businesses, they use the equity in their homes. So you have to have something that you can present to a lending institution that will make them feel comfortable. And you also have to have this plan about future growth and a pro forma statement about what your projected income might be from that. In order to, I believe, maintain and grow, you have to understand the volatility in the industry that you're going into and understand what your competitors are doing. That's very important. What are their profit margins? What are they doing different than what you would like to do? And so once you do that, you can start building these great relationships. And that's very important in business. Relationships not only mean talking to people that you know or going from one business to the other, trying to figure out who they know, but use your public officials. Your public officials can really open some doors for you. So I think those are the basic things that you need, in my opinion, to get going and maintaining your business.
Thank you, Gene, for those highlights. Tiffany, now you're someone who's always in every business's space. You're always, foot on the ground. Let us know what you think.
Well, first of all, I think Jean stole all of my notes because that's exactly what I was going to say. I had a top two. The first thing is a business plan. You all probably know this, but I go in and I talk to these owners and they don't even have a business plan, but they have a business, but they don't have a business plan. So that's very important. And they're always sharing with me how they cannot get funding. So those are the two major things that I have seen. You must have a business plan, something in order. And obviously, Jean just hit on it, but funding is important, but you have to know what goes behind all of that too.
Thank you, Tiffany. I know it's surprising when you see all these businesses with multiple locations and you're just still wondering, where's your business plan? So Deidre, as this now coming to you, what do you think?
Lost my page.
Well, let me just say, I think that Jean and Tiffany both made some excellent points, very tactical around what are the resources that are needed. I'd like to highlight a couple of other items that I think are critically important. And Jean touched on this. You must have really strong relationships, abiding relationships that you've developed where you have a team that supports you. The work that we are doing in communities as we build these relationships is to lock arms with business owners and with our community and go on this journey with them over time, helping them build the skills, the resources, the networks that they need in order to be successful. Those relationships really matter. And we feel our connections, both in terms of customers that we manage relationships with, but also with communities and governments, is a path for our business owners to build these relationships. Yes, absolutely, businesses need access to capital. And as Tiffany and Jean mentioned, you've got to have the right business plan and the right financial resources and acumen to really get access to that capital. But man, as soon as you get it in your hands, you got to know how to deploy it responsibly and thoughtfully with the right timing so that you can achieve the goals that you're seeking to achieve. So I'll just tell you, in my 28 years of banking and all the businesses I've had the privilege to work with, they all recognize the value of having a strong partnership. I think that's really important.
Thank you, Deidre. Before we get to Dr. Shelton, I just want to say, Jean, you made me rethink my business plan. Tiffany, I'm looking if I can get some money from someone. And Deidre, you are making me think, how thoughtful am I moving today? Am I moving in the right direction? So Dr. Shelton, let's end off with you for this first question.
And certainly to build on what the other panelists said, I mean, as part of knowing how to deploy your capital properly, a key part of developing a strong business plan is also gaining access to expertise. And one of the things I see in my work is that a lot of times Black business owners and BIPOC business owners don't have access to the same type of expertise and same type of knowledge that some other groups do. And so I would encourage, in order to sort of put the entire package together, the networking, the capital, the access to markets, all of that, is that relying on some informational and expertise resources that are often available in the community at a very low cost or free of charge, to get that mentorship that our Black business owners need, to get that advice. We see they have businesses, but sometimes they just need someone else to help them, just put it all together in a particular type of package that the business community tends to expect.
Thank you for that, Dr. Shelton. I would like to add that means we have to be very open to critique and feedback, which sometimes is a hindrance, especially when it comes to starting businesses, because we feel like we know it all or we've been doing it so long that we have to definitely be open to those expertise and those critiques to, make sure we move in the right direction. Now, going off of that, Jean, snowballing off of the resources mentioned, what are the ways that Black businesses can promote social consciousness while still maintaining a position in the general marketplace?
Yeah, I think there are a number of ways that businesses can participate. First thing they have to do is create a social mission statement. What is it that they're going to do? And then they have to work together with like-minded organizations who share that same philosophy. The other thing I think is important, you must educate your employees. Educate your employees about what's necessary to carry out that mission. And you can encourage your employees to volunteer. But you have to have that social mission statement so they can all be on the same page as to what the goals are. So those are the kinds of things that I do in my company and at the LA and at the chamber as well, African American Chamber. So we're all sort of like horse with blinders on. We're seeing the same thing right down the road, and we talk the same language. But I think those are some key things that could be considered for that.
Thank you, Gene. You made some great points there. Now, Dr. Shelton, how have trends in the Black community in the greater Los Angeles area impacted the number and growth of Black-owned businesses?
Great. Well, there's two key trends that I see in the Black business community in Los Angeles and nationwide. One, of course, is the impact of the pandemic. And another, of course, is the increase in social consciousness and allyship and racial pride that we see in the Black community as a result of some of the recent events, such as the impact of the George Floyd killing. One of the impacts of the pandemic is, on the one hand, we've seen some Black businesses going out of business. But on the upside, the Black-owned businesses have been recovering from the pandemic in terms of numbers, in terms of business formations, at a larger percentage and a higher rate than any other group. And this is a trend nationwide. And this speaks to the resilience and the creativity and the energy of Black-owned businesses. And so the second piece of that, those two, so in one sense, the pandemic may have had some people go out of business. On the other hand, it also showed many people in our community that I can make a living, I can build wealth, I can provide what I need for my family without working for someone else. So I see those two trends as being positive and continuing to increase the number of Black-owned businesses and hopefully their size as well.
Thank you for that. That's very enlightening. It kind of is one of those things where, like, the pandemic showed us if you really want this that badly. And then it also showed us, like, someone in school cheating a little bit, you know, like when you don't have anyone to give you the answers, when it gets kind of tough, you're like, have you really studied? Have you mastered the craft? Have you mastered these things? So it has, you know, really just revealed the perseverance that the community has in Los Angeles and nationwide. Now, talking about perseverance, let's go to Tiffany. Tiffany, you created Black-owned Food LA. You're constantly out there, you know, doing the Lord's work because you are on your feet visiting businesses throughout LA County and LA City, right? What made you start this and what made you do it, especially because a lot of people don't know that, you know, you started this just on your own volition, just to give them a space, a voice, a face to their business.
Exactly. And I agree with what Dr. Shelton just mentioned too. Again, I feel like we're so in tune with each other on this panel. But during the pandemic, once the incident happened with George Floyd, because I was one of those who was in corporate America for almost 20 years, and I lost my job. I got furloughed and then they let me go. So I started this platform. And what I noticed was when I was going out there talking to the business owners, a lot of them was very close. If not, they went out of business. Some went out of business. And then you had a handful that was able to open more locations. But for the most part, owners had to pivot very quickly. So they had to figure out, how can I maintain? Because LA, we shut down. We just pretty much shut down. So it was very hard for them. And because of that, what I saw was, how can I just keep eyes on their businesses? So I started Black-owned Food LA. And it was just important for me to go in, talk to them, get their story, share the delicious food, because there are some great eating places and hidden gems out here. So I wanted to make sure people knew that we're here. We are still trying to stay afloat. And that was pretty much the premise of me starting Black Owned Food LA.
Thank you, Tiffany. If anyone's ever on a diet, please make sure you mute her page until your diet's up, okay? Deidre, let's hear from you about corporate social responsibility. What does the community mean to you, and how does the community and business development organization fit into the definition? And why is Chase actively looking for that?
Yeah, great question. First, let me just say, as Tiffany mentioned, I just have, a swelling sense of pride as I join all of you on this panel and think about our people and the resilience of our people and the ability to get back in the game. We know the stats that we saw during the pandemic, 40% of businesses closing. We know, to Tiffany's point, how many doors were closed and the challenges we faced here in Los Angeles with occupancy. But what happened? What usually happens with our people? We stood up, right? Figured out how to pivot, figured out how to make a lot happen with a little. And that's the beauty of our community, our diverse experiences and background and issues that we've handled in the past. We applied that to our businesses and we're back, right? And so at Chase, over the last 28 years, I've been a part of that. This commitment to community is not new for me. And I've seen, as we've evolved as a firm over the years, our ability to think about what's the next thing, how can we continue to imagine how we can support communities. But candidly, the George Floyd murder rocked us and reminded us that there has to be more that we can do. And so in October of 2020, we stepped up and we made a $30 billion commitment to seek to close the racial wealth gap. Now, $30 billion is a big number, but we all know it's not enough. There are stats out there that show that there's $60 billion of unmet capital need on an annual basis just in Los Angeles County. But it's a start, right? It allows us to think about how can we support, how can we provide incremental value to help close this racial wealth gap. And I'm excited about the work. I think that my team, as I mentioned earlier, these community managers are hyper local. For example, right there at our Crenshaw community branch, they are there every day helping business owners and helping consumers get access to financial services. And they're a resource to the community. So we're committed to this work and within this $30 billion commitment and beyond.
Thank you, Deidre, for that. Don't just leave that. I still have another question for you. Now, post-pandemic, or if we're still in one, we never know, right? What are some of the common issues that you see within Los Angeles and other communities you serve?
Great question. One of the things that was compelling for me, and keep in mind, I'm all of 60 days into this new responsibility running community and business development for the firm. But prior to that, I had a laser focus on the impact for business owners. And what I saw by and large is that business owners needed help with technical assistance. I participated in a lot of the work that JP Morgan did to support the PPP loans that our customers applied for. And what I saw consistently is that business owners didn't have good financial records. They didn't have a relationship with a banker so that they had someone to go to help them figure out, how to apply for the resources that were available. Just the process of getting the free money was challenging for business owners because they didn't have those networks of support. And so we're on a mission to help businesses get back to pre-pandemic levels as a start, right? And beyond, but it's all about them having the right network, having a trusted team that they can be honest with and that can be honest with them. I think someone mentioned earlier how important it is for us to be able to receive that feedback, right, and apply it. And so I really believe that the opportunity is both support and guidance and mentorship, also capital, but in order to deploy that capital responsibly so that folks aren't worse off, we've got to make sure we have the right team around us.
Thank you for that, Deidre. We have 8 minutes left, everyone. So I'm gonna try to get these done so everyone get all this information from you, right? So Jean, 34% of Black business owners cite raising capital as a primary obstacle. How can businesses, especially Black-owned business owners, really position themselves to be eligible at any level to gain capital?
Can you hear me now? Yeah. First of all, you have to be eligible for the capital that you're looking for. And as I said earlier, you have to look at the banks first and think about ways you can get collateral to them to secure the loan. You have to also look at some federal government programs or state, such as the SBA, the U.S. Department of Commerce, and the federal, just to see if they have federal grants. And some of them do. We have to keep in mind too, though, that only 4% of Black Americans' businesses survive the startup stage. Even though 20% of us, we start businesses, but only 4% survive. Even if they survive the startup stage, the Black companies still disproportionately struggle with debt and raising capital. And again, as I said, we have to be in a position to think outside the box. Where are the venture capitalists? Where are the government programs that could assist me? And those are the basic things I think you need to do in order to look at the way you can move forward.
Thank you, Jean. Those statistics are very alarming and scary. Didn't even know that 20% to the 4. Wow. Definitely taking that into consideration moving forward.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Shelton, I want to move on and talk with you. The market access is key to any business. How can community partners aid in improving market access for Black businesses?
Yes, I mean, market access will help Black businesses get to a point where they can be eligible for greater funding and greater business loans. And so this is an important topic. It's near and dear to my heart. All community organizations can assist in this process. Basically, by market access means they're increasing the number and scope of customers. So even the smallest community organization can increase the visibility of Black businesses by, for instance, having them co-sponsor or having them be a part of any community events they have. Community organizations can also serve an advocacy role when they are working with the local and state government, when they're working with other organizations within the community, other larger corporations. They can step up and ask for a piece of the action being given, that be given to a local Black business. And then in addition, community organizations can certainly offer these sources of information. I mean, there's a number of programs available, such as supplier diversity programs, community development finance programs. We see other organizations like banks, such as the JP Morgan Chase featured here. In addition, there's educational programs, there's consulting opportunities. So community organizations, even the smallest ones, can serve a role in promoting the visibility and the advocacy and offering new opportunities for Black businesses.
Thank you for that, Dr. Shelton. Now, Tiffany, back to you. You have mentioned, you touched on a couple of the disparities that these restaurants are facing, correct? What are some of the other disparities that you see that they're facing that are necessary for them to resolve so that they can stay afloat?
Well, I know we don't have that much time, but I want to read a quote from R. Donahue Peebles Jr. It's some stats. Out of $69 trillion that was invested in venture capital and private equity, Less than 1.3% is invested in firms founded and run by Black women or women of color. Last year, Black women started 30% of small businesses. And of that number, less than 2/10 of that 1%, they were able to get private equity. So I'm saying this because as I was reading this from this gentleman that presented this information, we have an unfair advantage. So I see the disparity because truly, and this is a stat, 98.7% of all capital goes to white men. So what I'm seeing when I go into these restaurants, they just get an unfair advantage. And it's because of, as we have been talking about this, it's because of not knowing. So this is a good panel. I'm just speechless because I'm learning so much information to share with these restaurant owners.
Thank you, Tiffany. I know the stats are wowing, right? So we have two last questions. The first one is going to go to Jean. Now you see that businesses are growing virtual. Everything is becoming more and more virtual, you know, e-commerce, marketplace, the reliance on digital media. What are some things that you see that Black businesses can use to stand out in the marketplace now that virtualness is a necessity?
Well, I think that the use of technology can be great. For marketing, they should get what they call a bot to do repetitive marketing. And I think that they should also utilize Facebook, Instagram, those kinds of programs to get the message out. So basically, that's what you have to do, I believe, to get the message out in terms of technology.
Thank you, Jean. That is definitely important messaging. The message has to be clear, it has to be unique, and it has to make sure that people understand what the business is here for, what the product and or service does, even if it's food, a book, or if you're a life coach. Everyone needs to know why they should, actually connect with you. Last question for the group. In addition to market access, Black businesses and business owners need resources and support. How can community organizations and partners help provide these additional resources and support? Dr. Shelton, obviously, I'm going to you first.
Great. Well, one of the key resources that I see is expertise. And I do think one of the important community organizations are our local universities and colleges and community colleges. And many of those organizations offer free to low cost to no cost consulting. And at the Nazarian College, we offer a small business consulting program in which businesses can get up to 300 hours of consulting from our master's and undergraduate students. And it's voluntarily paid, it's privately supported. And so that's an excellent opportunity for particularly minority-owned business and Black-owned businesses. We really are looking for those clients to get some of this expertise to achieve that next level.
Thank you, Dr. Shelton. Deidre?
I just want to make another commercial for our Crenshaw community branch. Guys, if you haven't seen that branch sitting right there on the corner of Vernon and Crenshaw, you got to see it. It's something special. Most of all, it's a place for us. So please go visit, because what you'll find inside is a whole team of people who welcome you. A gentleman I spoke to recently said that the only way he could describe how he felt when he walked in that branch was a sense of dignity. That just gave me chills all over, because that's what we're trying to create. We want to build a relationship with our community. And whether you bank with us or not, we have workshops and resources for you. We hope at some point that we'll earn your trust and you'll want to bank with us. But the main thing is for you to feel like that's your community center. So please visit our community centers. We'd love to have you. Thank you.
No, thank you, Deidre. Tiffany?
And of course, again, I get this from owners all the time that say they don't know where to go. And it's become one of my responsibilities to find someone like a Dr. Shelton and Dr. Deidre, just to give them information on how they can get these resources. Of course, if you go through the SBA, I know that's a 4-week class or something, but they don't have time. The turnover to keep employees is hard enough. So they're always at the restaurant working. So just trying to get that information out to them is my goal. So this is good. I will pass on the information because this is much needed.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I'll pass it on along too. Last but not least, Jean.
Okay. Yeah, the panel stole my speech, so, but I can add one thing. I think that companies should take advantage of organizations like the Chamber, the African American Chamber. And the reason I say that is this: when we talk about resources, the Chamber has some of the largest companies in California as members. AT&T, Amazon, Union Bank, Morgan, and so Phelps, Microsoft, you just name them. And so that could be a resource that I think that they could utilize to move their business along, because it's a networking opportunity to open doors for you.
Thank you so much, Jean. You are definitely correct about opening the doors, as a resource like yours. I just want to say thank you to everyone on this panel. Thank you to the panel before us. This is so important for everyone to understand what's going on in LA and how we can connect to our own community, but how other communities could connect with us as well to support and foster the growth through relationships. And I will end this off with bringing back Josh, and thank you once again for this opportunity to moderate such an amazing panel with amazing community leaders. Josh.
Thank you so much, Michael, Jean, Tiffany, Deidre, and Dr. Shelton. I just think this has been a fascinating and continued important conversation. Tiffany, I particularly appreciated all the stats that you provided, because I think it was quite illuminating and something for us to take a closer look at. Well, on behalf of the LA Business Journal, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I want to also remind you that the August 1st print and digital editions will highlight this event, and you'll be able to get a little bit more on each of our panelists today. And for those of you who know of others who would find value from this conversation, a recorded version of the entire program is going to be available on labusinessjournal.com as of tomorrow. So please feel free to send links to share with friends, colleagues, and clients. Let's continue the conversation. We look forward to hosting you next time with our 5th session on this series. And until then, everybody, please stay safe. Have a good day.